In today's video, we're going to be talking about how to get ahead in 2020 and beyond. I say 2020 because this is the year where a lot of changes happen. COVID happened, and a lot of changes have happened since 2020. Do you ever feel like you're wasting your time, you're not getting anywhere in life? Well, you're not alone. Today, I'm here to help you out with that. We're going to cover some key topics here. Key topics are stop doom scrolling. Number 2 is face your tasks. 3, stick to a routine. Look within. Minimize consumption. Be a creator versus a consumer. Clean your environment. Prioritize self-care. Stay persistent. Welcome to my channel. Today we're diving into these 10 strategies to get ahead in life. Especially if you're feeling stuck and distracted in this modern world, I'm here to help you out. So let's do this. The first thing is to stop doom scrolling. Guys, it's about time that we just stop doom scrolling. And what I mean by doom scrolling is if you're like trying to learn something, trying to find some value in something, then that's good. You can scroll and learn and research. And the next thing is to unfollow distractions. So in a lot of men's cases right now, especially if you're a man nowadays, we have the tendency to follow a lot of women, especially half naked women, online. We should just stop doing this. Stop following naked women online. When I'm learning something, I always have my Notion out, and I just go through all the stuff that I'm learning. I take notes and do all of those things. But if you're just scrolling just to sort of escape or get out of that boredom, then just stop doing it. And the only way to do that is to be mindful about it. So you can do things like set time limits, use your timer on your phone to stop you from doing this. And 3 is to create a schedule. I've been a person where I've sort of failed in this many times, but I'm slowly working towards doing better. And the best way to create a schedule is to it's just create a schedule, really. Use productivity apps, I use Notion a lot. Again, like I said, that helps me take a lot of notes on it. I basically have my whole life on it. It's like my second brain where I store all my information in. So yeah, engage in offline activities. And another thing is to unfollow and just unfollow all the people. And I'd say if you're a guy, the biggest thing that you can do is to just unfollow all the women who are not following you back. That's just one simple thing that you can do. By doing that, you can see there's a huge benefit in your life. The problem is in this modern day and age, there's a lot of guys that just simp. And what I mean by simping is just following these women, and then they show up on your timeline or your feed, and it's just a distraction. You don't need that, especially if you're a man of high value and you're trying to grow. Keep your phone out of reach, and that's easier said than done. And the best thing I would say, my advice is to have your phone and keep it away from you, and keep it on silent. So I keep my phone on silent all day. So I if I get calls, notifications, or anything like that, it's just on silent. So no one, can bother me or trouble me, especially while I'm working, because right now I'm running a business. I'm doing quite a few intensive things, and also doing content creation. So, again, there's a lot of things that, I'm doing now. So the last thing you want to do is to, especially when you're working, is to keep your phone on sound. You can reflect on your usage. There are a few apps on the phone where you can reflect on your usage. Okay, the second one is to face your tasks. Facing your tasks is a really, really hard thing. Most people, what they do is they just find ways to distract themselves. I've been through that, I've spent years, finding ways to distract myself. And then, you keep these tasks that you're supposed to get done, and you just let yourself go, you distract yourself. And unless you're actually mindful about it and are ready to sort of change, it's very, very hard, because there are a lot of distractions right now in this world. So many people, so many things to distract you. So you really have to have clear goals and clear tasks, really. I wouldn't say, forget about the goals, tasks, that you need to, put down, say on something like Notion, and go ahead and do it. Use time management techniques. There are a lot of courses out there on time management which you can take, but time management really is just blocking out time. At the end of the day, blocking out time for the things that are important for you to do. So you really have to think about more than adding, minusing things. So I would always say, like, start off with removing things before you add. So that's just one tip. Eliminate your distractions. Again, like I said, we're heavily distracted here. The only way you can sort of eliminate your distractions is to be really, really mindful about it. So keep in mind to just completely eliminate your distractions. It doesn't happen straight away. It takes time. So the best thing you can do is to really start writing down, writing down the things that make you distracted. Stay organized and stay focused, and seek accountability. So lately I've been telling a lot of people that just started a YouTube channel. And the reason why I'm doing that is because, 1 year from now, I'm just saying, right? Like 1 year from now, if I have not put out enough video and talking about what I'm trying to do and achieve, people are going to call me a bluff. I'm always finding ways how I can be accountable. And sometimes just telling a few people, not going and telling the whole world, but say if someone asks you, hey, what are you doing? What are you up to? Just tell them, hey man, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing this on the side, and just keeps you accountable. Visualize your success. Take a few moments to visualize your success, and this could be, again, during your boring times when you're, say, waiting for a doctor's appointment, you're sitting in the park, just visualize. And this is what I really call meditation, is really just, sitting with boredom. Stay flexible. There's going to be changes that happen in your life. There's going to be obstacles. And I always say, like, the best thing to do is to have a set of things that are non-negotiable, and that other people cannot control. But apart from that, I would say stay flexible and stay lean. Third strategy that we're going to talk about is sticking to a routine. Sticking to a routine. The routine is usually the backbone of any success, So start small. So I always say, like, start with small routine. So you want to go to the gym. Before you start going to the gym, set yourself a goal to find a gym that's close by, or even better yet, work out at home. Start off with a workout routine where you work out at home for, like, say 5 or 6 months. This is for someone who has never been to the gym, right? You work out at home for 5 or 6 months and keep on to that routine, regularly. So you wake up in the morning or do it in the evening, you come back home, and that routine, if it's 5 days a week, you just stick to that routine, that time, and you just do it. I usually like to get my gymming done first thing in the morning, because it's not something that I want to, especially when I had a long day. I don't want to come back home or work hard all day and then go to the gym and get tired. So I do this first thing in the morning because, that's when I'm pumped, when I'm rested and really well. And it also helps me to get throughout the day, Prioritize consistency over perfection. Sometimes you might not get everything right. Like this YouTube video that I'm doing, it's not perfect. I should have actually taken more hours to do this, but I didn't. I just sort of freestyled it. So that's just another example of this, using reminders and alarms. So I usually have different alarms during the day, just to help me get through what I need to do. So that helps you, track your progress, and also, again, like, eliminate distractions. So if when you wake up in the morning, you need to have, like, a clear understanding exactly what you're going to do. I've actually outlined that, in a slide. So check it out. So another thing is how you can prepare in advance. Think about going to the gym, right? So, like, if you're going to the gym, make sure your bag is always in the car. Make sure your clothes are always in the bag. Your water bottle is always filled up. Just small things like that. Your gym is 5 minutes away by car, or even better, the closer the better. The last thing you want to do is, commute to a gym. Commuting is the most depressing and brain dead activity someone can do. I hate commuting, and that's also one of the reasons why I've left the job market, because I think working in a 9-to-5 job is just modern day slavery. The fourth one is to look within. So self-reflection and, analyze yourself. What makes you tick? Like, what are the main things that makes you do things. Ask yourself questions, meditate regularly. Again, meditation is the art of being bored. So if you can just sit there being bored, technically you are sort of meditating. So a lot of people find it very difficult to be bored. Journaling, this can be done easily if you have Notion, if you've got Notion on your phone. I don't really waste my time buying journals and things like that, because it's just a waste of money, because you're going to have this journal, you're going to chuck it away, you're never going to read it after a year or 2 years. At least if you put it on Notion, it's going to be there forever. So yeah, journaling is good. Again, like I said, writing is always a good way to sort of talk to yourself. It's to dump your thoughts on a paper. In my case, I just obviously use Notion a lot. So yeah. And the last few things here is, on looking within, right, is to embrace your vulnerability. Allow yourself to be vulnerable every once in a while. I mean, as a male, you don't want to be too vulnerable. You don't want to be too, you don't want to be like a female, but also at the same time, occasionally, every once in a while, it's okay. It's okay to be vulnerable. But I always say, like, do it in a more solution-based approach than in a victim-based approach, so that's another thing too. And I'll talk more about this in another video. Explore your passions, like in my case, I'm very interested in videography. I'm interested in programming, in tech. I'm interested in psychology and a whole variety of things. So just finding ways to explore your passions, because as a young male, a lot of people have tendencies to sort of find something that it's basically outside of sleeping with women. So yeah. Another thing you want to avoid doing is a lot of most people have these passions, but they're sort of afraid to follow it. Is because either through the fact that they are constantly distracted, or that they don't set themselves up to actually do this. Also, another thing is, is to get a coach. Recently, I've got myself a couple of good friends, who are doing way better than me, and who are great coaches. They help me out. Spending time with them helps me grow as a person, and also helps me understand how life works. The fifth strategy is to minimize consumption. Cutting back consumption actually makes you happy. So buying less, so creating a budget and, sticking to that budget, especially when you're going to shop for food. Usually when I shop for food, I just usually get it online. So I'll order online and then, pick it up when it's ready. So I don't waste my time in the supermarket, because, every time that you're window shopping, you're wasting time. Adopt a minimalist mindset. So always think about the stuff that you have in your house. Think about, like, do you really need it? Do you really need this in your house? Why do you need this? So that's also another important thing to remember. And also just limit yourself to advertising exposure. This could be anything, and I usually have a lot of like pop-up blockers, on my computer and things like that. So I don't get to see, advertising. I only want to see that what I want to see. So I don't get influenced as much, as most people. Practice mindful spending. Really ask yourself, do you really need this? Always ask yourself, are you gonna, I'll give you an example in clothes, right? So like I don't really have much of clothes, but I buy very high quality clothes, and so I'll always buy those clothes to basically wear them all the time. I would never wear it for a special occasion or anything like that. I wear it most times, so so that's also another thing to do, is to buy things, good quality things, but use them. Set financial goals, define a financial goals, and then, pay off any debt. And with debt, I'll make another video about this, but there are two types of debt. There's government debt, and then there's private debt. And I always say, like, with government debt, there's no escaping, but with private debt, there are ways to sort of pay little so that you can keep some money aside and use it, but ultimately what you want to do is to get financially better off, so that your debts become smaller and smaller, and basically your spending becomes more mindful and less. Okay, and now I'm going to talk about strategy six, which is become a creator versus a consumer. Okay, so turn your ideas into reality. So basically, like what I'm doing right now, I'm talking about, I've been doing my productivity hacks and, about self-improvement and things like that. I've been doing it for over like 8 to 10 years now, and I've been on the self-improvement journey for about 8 to 10 years, and people always ask me, like, oh shit, like, damn, how are you able to do this? So now I'm actually, like sharing my knowledge, so this is, I'm creating by talking to you on the camera. I am creating. Yeah, so join creative communities. So like I've joined a lot of like, software development communities. I've joined a lot of, communities that I'm interested in. So you're doing things like that is really good. And practice regularly. So like practicing regularly is like, say, for example, like in my case, I have an interest in software development. So I do a lot of like lead code challenges. I read a lot, I just, like follow my passions really, like really, really hone in on what you're interested in and just document your journey. I've not really done that myself, but I'm hoping that through these YouTube videos and through, me sharing my content with you, that I'm able to document my journey. Create a dedicated workspace. So a good example is having a table or a place where you can just come and work, spend a lot of time there, so you can think, create, and make things. In my case, I have this space here where I work predominantly and also make content. Take breaks, every once in a while, like take a weekend off, don't tell anyone, just take a weekend off. Yeah, take breaks, regular breaks. Before we wrap this up on how to be a creator, is in order for you to be a creator, you have to be constantly learning. And what I mean by constantly learning is your mind has to be in a constant learning mode. Like right now, I'm doing 2 remote, I would say not half degrees, but like quarter degrees from Harvard, learning AI, learning, computer science. Advancing my knowledge in computer science and things like that, where you're just constantly learning. You're not stuck in one place, and I'm learning, new video editing techniques, everything that I'm interested in. Like I'm learning about fitness, I'm learning about how to maintain muscle, how to, just you have to be in a constant state of learning. Strategy 7 is cleaning your environment. You want to keep your environment, and I mean by clean is, a place where when you come in, things are organized. They are not all over the place, so that your mind is clear for you to work, for you to be consistent, give you the ability to work. So keeping your place clean is really important. Like another thing is about keeping your place clean is to manage things. I usually like to name stuff, and with my equipment, I name a lot of things. So I keep them organized and things like that. So just creating your sort of own organizational structures is really, really good. It helps you with keeping everything in place. Okay, and the strategy 8 is to prioritize self-care. And what I mean by prioritize self-care is I'm really talking about like looking at your sleep. This is like big, sleep is like one of the most biggest thing, and I'm going to actually do a separate video on sleep. But prioritizing your self-care, treat yourself every once in a while, like give yourself a break. Practice the art of being bored. And I always say that meditation is the art of being bored. It's regularly. When I mean by exercise regularly, I mean like just really, 5 days a week minimum. Or, you could do 3 days a week, but, in my case, I just do 5 days a week. And I usually do a short workout in the morning. And that helps me, keep my mind sharp and keep my body strong. Eat a balanced diet. For me, I just follow the Mediterranean diet. I'm not too big on diets or anything like that because, again, like I said, it's just really hard to maintain. You also have to be realistic here, trying to be a self-disciplined guru, like, or on yourself is not going to help you actually grow. And connect with loved ones. What I mean by connect with loved ones, always choose quality time over quantity. So I always look at it like this, right? So I spend time with my friends, I spend time with my family and things like that. And sometimes, usually it's somewhere between an hour to, 2 hours, maybe once a week or something like that. But it's always quality time where I'm not on my phone, I'm not checking out, what other people are doing or anything like that. I'm really engaged with them. So it's the same thing if I go out on a date with a girl or anything like that. I usually am just like really, engaged with her. I don't, turn on my phone or anything like that. I don't check my phone. I just keep my phone on silent, and so I can just, really talk to her, and understand her. So that's also another thing that's really important, pampering yourself. So pampering yourself is like, just taking care of yourself, like doing, if you're a man, you should, there's nothing wrong with doing facials, nothing wrong with doing, getting sports massages or something like that, just really looking after yourself, and giving like pampering yourself basically, And the last thing is to stay positive, I always say, stay positive. I don't mean toxic positivity. A lot of us have sort of imposter syndrome. So we're really like, struggling to basically recognize our own skills and talent. So that's what I mean by being positive. I have a certain number of goals that I need to hit. And, I'm pretty hard on myself when I, hit those goals. So just having your goals outlined on a sheet of paper so that you can just follow through them. And again, I don't use any paper or anything like that. So all my goals, everything that I do, like I said earlier, my second brain is on Notion. Strategy 10 is to stay persistent. Again, setting clear goals, creating a plan, building a routine, staying organized, tracking your progress, celebrate the small wins that you have, stay positive, resilient, learn from failures. And I keep saying this over and over again, you're never going to learn until you are able to have a really comfortable relationship with failure. So really understanding failure and having that comfortable relationship with failure. Managing your stress and taking breaks. A lot of success is learning how to manage your stress. And your burn rate. So that's also another thing, is to really manage your burn rate, because a lot of people I see in, a book called Tipping Point. And that book really explains how to manage your burn rate. So a lot of people fail not because, they have a bad idea or anything like that. It's because they don't stay long enough in the game, or they just give up just when they're about to make it, so that's another really important thing. Reflect and adjust, So yeah, I really hope that you enjoyed this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you like more of this content, please also just comment and just let me know what you think. Are you helping me out? I can put out more content, and it's only going to help you out because again, like I said, I have a lot of experience in this. I've been in the self-help productivity game for like 8 to 10 years now, so it's a very, very long time. And now I'm just recently, just sharing my knowledge with the world. So yeah, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.